to be it. And welcome to another great Colin Crandall interview, MMA from London to LA. You guys also know me as the MMA professor and the host of MMA Power Hour for 7 years. I am so happy to have this next guest on the show for the very first time. He is an amazing fighter out of London, England, fighting for the incredible Cage Warriors organization. We are talking about none other than Mr. Thomas Paull. Welcome to the show, Thomas.
Hello. Thank you for having me here, Colin.
You're very welcome,
it's a pleasure to speak with you.
I appreciate that. It's a pleasure to speak with you as well. And we also have the Sean interpreting for Thomas. And Thomas, we are looking forward to a great chat with you. So first, let's go and talk about the upcoming fight. 1 week from today, you are going to have a very good fight at Cage Warriors. Your opponent is going to be Milad Ahadi. What do you know about this opponent, and what kind of challenges do you expect him to bring?
I know he trains in a fantastic gym. He fights out of MMA Academy, and you know, that seems to be they seem to bring in the 1%ers. You know,
absolutely.
They're very selective about the fighters they bring in. You know, if I'm fighting Milad, and you know, it would be fantastic to beat him.
Excellent. And where you're training, do you have the same people that are helping you for the each and every single camp, or is it different people? And if so, would you like to let us know some of the guys that are giving you some good looks and some work on this camp, or is some of it a bit of a secret?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've had the same fight camps all the way through, and I believe that's the key. Well, the only key to win the game is to hone in on their weaknesses, you know.
Absolutely, very true. Well, I just watched a clip of your fight against Mr. Let me get it right here, and it was the fight that was against Mr. Perry, Andre Goodwin. That was an amazing knockout, my friend. Did you know from the first time you landed that shot that he wasn't getting up? I've heard some fighters say they feel that impact and they know the guy wasn't getting up. Or were you not sure how hurt he was?
To be honest, that thought never crossed my mind, you know. The moment goes so fast. You land that punch, you land that blow, you know, your blood is boiling.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
It was so heated prior, and when I hit that and when I landed that, I never had the time to think, you know, is he out? Is he not? Is he up? I just carried on. You know, I just went for the finish until the ref stops, until the game is stopped.
Absolutely. And I believe that was part of a combination that you threw. And I know so many fighters are throwing only one punch, but it really is important to throw those combos, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, you know, going for the 1-2 and then slipping the follow-up and then landing the last one. It was wonderful.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about, throwing combos. So I know from our mutual friend, Chris Allen, and from your interpreter here that you're one of the very few deaf fighters that are fighting at a high level. And I know that it was Matt Hamill that fought for the UFC that did reach out to you about possibly coming and working with him. Have you spoken with him?
Yes.
And is there any plan? I know he's in the US and you're in the UK, but are there any thoughts about possibly training with him, or is that something you're going to have to leave off for the future?
Oh, I mean, I would definitely love to train with Matt going into the future. You know, to be taught by someone who's deaf and operates at that level as a coach, I haven't had that yet, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, I've had hearing people that can sign, but a deaf coach who can impart that knowledge, that would be absolutely fantastic. And when, you know, it would be a holistic approach to getting, so that, you know, all that information. You know, sometimes when a hearing person speaking to you, they may give you more information, may waffle sometimes. I will never say no to that opportunity.
Absolutely. It makes sense to me. Now, let me ask you, as a deaf fighter where you're not hearing the crowd, you're not hearing screaming, one would think that there would certainly be disadvantages, but would you imagine there's any advantage to not hearing the crowd possibly cheering for you or cheering against you or reacting in a one way or another? Are there any advantages that you would feel by not hearing those things? Or perhaps is there something that that could also be helpful where you're not hearing, so maybe you're watching something a bit more carefully and a bit more focused than the people who can hear the normal sounds of the crowd screaming and things such as that?
Yeah, I think obviously I don't think there's no right or wrong answer here, Chris, Colin. But you know, myself, I'm the wrong person to ask. You know, I've never heard a sound in my life. You know, so I don't know what I'm missing, or you know, I don't know when it comes to hearing the crowd, not hearing the crowd. There is no emotional difference to me. It really doesn't cross my mind.
Understood.
You know, it doesn't bother me at all.
Makes sense. Do you ever look out?
You know, when I'm sorry.
Don't say. Go ahead.
You know, one problem is obviously when you're looking or trying to gauge coach instructions during the fight, you can't do that. You know, when you're looking at, I've got to be smart in terms of how I get information without interrupting the flow of the fight. And when you're talking, I've got a workout where I'm standing in the, you know, in the cage. If my coach is placing a particular thing and I'm fighting and my back's to the cage, my back's to the coach, that's not a great idea for me at all. You know, so I have to ensure that you know, I've got my coach behind my opponent almost sometimes.
Absolutely. Now, forgive me for not knowing, because there's several of your fights I have not seen. Do you have someone in between rounds that can speak to you in sign language that can give you the coaching? And if so, is this in every single fight or only occasional fights?
Yeah, so I have conversations with my coach every day, you know, via lip reading. I'm so used to lip reading my coach. I'm so versed in my coach's lip pattern, and the coach is so used to my voice. So we can communicate one-on-one, and that's not a problem. You know, I train there every day. We get so used to each other. So when it comes to fight night, between rounds, I have an interpreter, of course, for translating. Well, having an interpreter there, interpreting between myself and my coach, didn't really make sense. You know, when you have an interpreter there, it can deviate from the source. I would much rather just tune in to my coach, and before and after, like pre-fight, post-fight, I'll use interpreters, but during the fight, I'm zoned in on my coach. You've created that relationship over time. You know, when I'm thinking about Steve, I'm absolutely keyed in.
Makes sense. And also, forgive me for not knowing, but after you win a fight and they speak with you, do you have an interpreter there with you that can come in and
absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And are they always effective? Because I've known that some fighters that speak a foreign language, sometimes the interpreter seems to be saying something not quite exactly what the fighter was trying to say. Have you ever had any issue where you see the interpreter who has not said exactly what you wanted to say? Never, no problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, it can happen, but I don't think it will happen. I use qualified interpreters. They know how to relay the correct message. You know, that is their profession, and yeah, it seems simple.
That makes sense.
Also, you know, there's another thing as well. You know, obviously we've got the interpreters, but also the CSWs. You can use a CSW, a communication support worker, but historically they've been used in, you know, education settings, and that's where they start. Whereas the qualified interpreters that I mentioned before, you know, they're not going to be able to deviate from the source message there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So tell us a little bit about what got you into fighting. Were you doing martial arts or wrestling, or what was the beginning of your interest in combat sports? How long ago was this? And when did you make a decision that you were going to decide to do this as a profession to make a living?
Okay, yeah. I've growing up, I've always loved, fighting. Whether that's just play fighting with friends, you're bantering, you're fighting, and never really got into a serious level of combat sports. My father didn't really agree with the idea of going and training. So I was a little bit like the black sheep of the family, like started martial arts, and when I got to an age 18 or so, I finally trained. I started and then stopped, commitment. When you're 18, 19 years old, the commitment, it's a massive sacrifice at that age.
Yeah.
You're sacrificing time, social relationships. I didn't want to give that up at 18. I wanted the freedom that came along with being 18 years old. But when I got to 20, same sort of thing. And then I actually started a new job. I started an apprenticeship as an electrician. Mm-hmm. And I got 3 years in and it just didn't work out. Like it felt like a rat race. You're just running, man. So I came back home. I actually got sacked. I came back home and I was like, well, what am I going to do with myself? Do I go and look for another job? Do I get caught up in the rat race again? I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to start training. And that was when I was 23 years old. I absolutely believed in myself that I could make something out of it.
I like it. How much support did you get? Did you get your parents or brothers or sisters or family mostly supporting or mostly not supporting, or was everyone supporting? Was it a gradual change, or where does it stand as of right now?
Yeah. At the start, obviously, I'd be a millionaire, if I got a bit of money every time I heard someone say to me, you're not going to be able to do this. You're crazy. This idea is mental. I feel like you have to be crazy to start something sometimes,
Absolutely. Were there any fighters in those early days that you admired, perhaps that were active at that time or that were like legends in MMA? I believe that MMA has become a lot bigger in England over the last decade. I remember years ago, it was Michael Bisping. I interviewed Michael Bisping a few years ago. He actually took his eye out, his artificial eye out on my show about 3 years ago. And at one point, you had the notorious Lee Murray, who was the bank robber, right? And then you had Ian the Machine Freeman, and then Michael Bisping, pretty much. And there was very few fighters from the UK. And then you had people like Ross Pearson come up and other people. Were there people that you admired either from the UK or from the US, or both? And who were these people that you looked up to and that you felt were either really good or perhaps represented as something, a style that you might want to have similar to?
Okay, yeah. That's a great story you've got there about Michael Bisping. I met him in Vegas, in fact. And he's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Definitely.
I'm a little bit after that time, I think. John Jones. John Jones is of my time, and that's just a level. I'm a little bit disappointed with how he's operated, and the lack of activity we've seen from John Jones recently. He's very much, I think he's operating very much in business circles now, economic circles. You can't blame someone for doing that. He's got to have his reasons, but he's the GOAT for a reason, so he can make those demands.
Absolutely. How do you think a fight would go down with John Jones and your fellow, your countryman, Tom Aspinall?
John Jones is such a good fighter, but I feel like he's starting to slow down a bit, Funnily, you spoke about this a few days ago. I was watching some of his fights, in full, and he's so relaxed, and his timing is impeccable, And he doesn't come to fight; he comes to finish. Do you know what I mean? Like when he turns up, he fights so tactfully. Whereas Tom Aspinall is very, very fast as well. For the weight that he's at. Do you know? But now John Jones is getting older. Can Jones catch Aspinall? That's the question. Or will he have to take him to the ground and finish it there? I don't know. It's a hard one, right? It's a hard one.
Do you think we'll see that or not?
I think. I think I'd lean towards Tommy. You know.
Yeah. Do you think the fight would the fight happen? Do you think, or is it unlikely?
Tom, I think Aspinall needs to start making some noise. You know. I think if the more people he attracts, I think he'll inevitably get the ears of Jones, and I think that will make things happen.
Absolutely. How do you feel about where things stand in the sport of MMA in England? Is this about as big as it's going to get, or do you think it's still in the process of getting bigger and more popular?
Oh, 100%. It's going to grow. It's going to grow so much more. If we see the level of growth we've had over the past 10 weeks, I actually teach every Thursday in Kent at a gym called Woods, and I started there last year, and that class in itself has shown immense growth. We're seeing so many young people come up who show a level of potential that if I think back to my days, when I was young, they've got so much more confidence. They're just so much out there. It's so impressive. So yeah, we're only going to see growth. But the thing is, what I really want to see is deaf people involved.
Yeah.
Like obviously I'm a deaf fighter, I'm a deaf coach, but deaf people accessing classes is hard. Like I've really tried to put the feelers out there, get the message out there. And I don't know whether there's a level of anxiety about training itself, or I don't really know what the issue is, or whatever barrier is presenting itself that they don't attend. But yeah, there's something that needs to be done there.
Yeah, because I'm sure there can definitely be some great fighters in the deaf community, and also the larger platform you get, the more you would be able to help bring them out, and I'd like to see that as well. So you are fighting in Cage Warriors, and you've had a lot of success. What is your goal from here? Would you like to stay in Cage Warriors for a bit and have a few fights, or would you want to take the first opportunity, if you had one again, to come to the United States? What would be your preference of how things would go, say, perhaps in the next year?
I've got my plan is to finish my entirety of contract at Cage Warriors. So my initial focus is just going to be focusing on the fights I've got, and then I'll worry about where that goes later.
Sounds good. Now, Chris Allen, our mutual friend, has told me that you've actually had an amazing ability to compete in different weight classes, which shows the discipline you have. Which different weight classes have you competed in? I've heard it's 3 or 4 different weight categories.
Yeah, so middleweight, welter, lightweight, and feather. I've been across all 4.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I think currently you're only at featherweight, or can you possibly go from one to another in Cage Warriors with the contract?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I believe I'm allowed to move up weight classes if I want to. I don't think they've signed me exclusively for a featherweight division. But I obviously have signed with the org, so I believe that I can move up weight divisions if I need to.
Makes sense. How do you feel about the cutting of weight and the discipline? Are you someone that really enjoys to eat a lot of food and drink tasty drinks, or does it not bother you that much having to be quite disciplined with your food and calorie intake?
I love food, man. I love food, and I don't know anyone who hates food. I think if we didn't eat, we'd be dead. So, I mean, look, if I want to fight, I've got to make weight.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely true. I'll tell you a funny story. I'm one of the few interviewers that will sometimes tell my guests a brief story. I had a person who became a friend of mine for many years approach me in a gym about 20 years ago, and he saw that I was, pretty muscular, had some size here. I'm not saying I look like a fighter, but and he was quite skinny, and he said, "What can I do? I want to put on some weight and I can't figure out how to do it." And I said, listen, well, you want to take these supplements and make sure you have these extra calories. And, but I said the protein doesn't taste that good. It was like the 1990s, right? And the supplements were really horrid, at least here in the United States. And I told him, I said, so what you're going to eat and drink is not a lot of good tasting things. And he told me it doesn't matter to him. He said he really doesn't care how things taste. And he was the first person I've ever met who said that. It was very bizarre. And I still to this day, he's a very successful businessman, but he said it never bothered him if things tasted bad. He said he just wanted to succeed at what he was doing. Now, I know most of
Yeah,
us
yeah.
normal people like the taste of food, but I think he's an anomaly. I think there's very few people that don't care how something tastes, right? I'm sure you'd agree.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a waste of time to discuss sometimes food, um,
Yeah.
whether it's good, bad, tastes good, bad. It's a tricky
Yeah,
one.
understood. If you're around your family and you're cutting weight, and dieting, do you care if they're eating things that you want to eat? Does this bother you? Do you feel temptation, or is it not a problem if people around you are going to eat whatever they're eating?
I mean, of course, you stare at this food, right? And you're salivating over the food that people eat, right? It can be
Yeah,
any food.
yeah,
Sometimes I know their cooking's not as good as mine, but I'm still looking at it. I'm like, oh,
I hear you.
and when sometimes I'm like, oh, I've got to make all the food. Sometimes when you're cutting weight, so I don't look at the foods so much. I don't get the opportunity to see that because I'm home so late. Post training.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what are some of the things that you like to do for enjoyment? Are you a fan of listening to music or going to concerts? Do you like to go out and watch comedy? Are you a big theater goer or cinema? Are there other sports that you like? What European football, as we call soccer in the United States? Do you have a favorite team? It seems like everyone's got some favorite team in the English Premier League, I would imagine, right?
Yeah. So I think obviously with regards to the Premier League, Man U, Manchester United, they're not playing great. They're playing shit right now,
Yeah.
but have gone completely downhill. I thought the manager would be sacked by now, but hey, they were lucky to win the FA Cup in the last game of the run. So when the CEO of Man U essentially looked like they've decided to keep him on and extend his contract, which I can't, I don't understand.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't understand, but we'll wait and see. But yeah, that's my team. We'll wait and see what the season brings. With other hobbies, I think fighting, training is hard. So my other hobbies are relaxing. Or might meet friends and do social stuff. But relaxing after I focus on fighting, that's where I reward myself, by the relaxing.
Absolutely. So, are there any things that you would like your fans or newer fans to know about you, about what motivates you, and about just you personally? A lot of times, when people watching, they want to see something they can relate to. Perhaps you like to eat fish and chips a lot, or perhaps you like to listen to a certain comedian or a certain music group. What are some of the things that many maybe people don't know about some of the things that you enjoy other than fighting?
Yeah. That's an interesting one. Okay, so obviously, I'm deaf. I'm profoundly deaf, and I'm not, I'm not the only one that's deaf in my family. Every single member of my family is deaf.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
I'm the fourth generation of deaf person.
Hmm. Very interesting.
And the other funny note, and most of us went to the same deaf school Mary Hare School, the place of education is crazy across all generations. Mental.
Very, very interesting. So what are your goals for your career? I know I would think indeed everyone wants to be a champion. I'm sure you would want to be a champion in Cage Warriors and then perhaps move on to the UFC. But do you have specific goals? And if so, what are they?
Like I've said before, I think long-term goal is to see more deaf people in combat gyms. You know, doesn't matter what the combat is, as long as you're doing something, because it'd be so good for them, whether that's improving confidence, learning new skills, you know, making new social circles, making new friends, new relationships. I just don't understand why, you know, people are anxious to do so. So that is my goal long term. I would like to have this conversation in 10 years' time and be able to say there is loads of deaf people in the gyms out there.
I like that. That's a very honorable objective. Do you have a goal in mind for how long you'll fight? Like some people will say, I certainly won't fight in my 40s, or some people will say, I certainly won't fight over 35 or 37. Do you have what they call an end date within your career?
No, I don't. I've never even considered it. You know, I don't think you can put a limit on yourself. If you were to put that time frame in yourself, it limits your mentality and your approach to fights. And I think it should be as free as it can. You should fight until you're satisfied with what you've achieved and with yourself.
I like that. Very good answer. Now, it seems like you're coaching already. So may I assume that when your fighting career is over, you would indeed stay in the fighting sport and then as a head coach or trainer or possibly your own gym?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind that at all. I wouldn't mind that at all. I think I haven't really thought like that though, Colin. I you know, it's such a different life path than what I'm on now. But you know, like coaching will always be a part of my life. I think it's a natural progression. As a professional fighter, you build up so much experience and knowledge. If you're not going to coach, it's a waste.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like I'm going to coach for a long time. But you know, that's alongside other life goals.
Absolutely. In the Cage Warriors organization, when you get by, and I know you never look past an opponent, but assuming that you do get by Milad Ahadi, is there anyone in mind that you would like for the next opponent, should you get by this next opponent?
I would like to fight the person again. I think he's probably scared. I would like to fight Bailey Gilbert.
Bailey Gilbert.
Bailey, and you know, obviously golden ticket. You know, he got me on a bad night. He got me on a bad night. I really want to fight him again. Obviously, he signed for Cage as well, and I would like you, Bailey. Just you know, when I pick up the phone and make the call, answer it.
I like it. I like it. We have a challenge. Hopefully, see that Bailey Gilbert fight run back. So, what would be your advice to, let's say, fighters that are deaf in the deaf community that are going to embark upon a career in MMA? And then, indeed, if it's different, what would be your advice, perhaps, to someone who is not deaf that is considering trying to be a fighter, or perhaps having their sons or even daughters attempt to be fighters?
Yeah, I don't think there is a difference in any advice that I would give. MMA is not a unique sport, but it's a great sport that people could be professional in. You know, it's an individual sport. It's not a team sport. You know, there's no neglect. There's no opportunity for neglect there. I am here fighting because I am me. You know, and you know, you're in your gym. But you're in your gym. You're in your camp. But I'm the one who walks into the cage. You know, there's no one that can diminish your skills in a like in a team sport. But you know, in MMA, you have to understand it is the most brutal journey. You know, it requires a level of commitment that is above and beyond much else. The level of attention But if you believe in what you're doing, you believe yourself, I think my main message would be don't give up, and what you will want will happen.
I like that. Well, we've only got a couple of minutes left, so let us know where people can find you. I know that you're doing some coaching. If people in the deaf community wanted to be able to come and learn from you and possibly start training, how would they be able to get a hold of you? If you want to if you want to let us know the address or the name, or perhaps if there's a social media or website for your school, I'd love to have you shout that out here so people can know where to find you.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you. So obviously, my name is on, well, my Instagram handle is Thomas Paull MMA, with no spaces in that. And you can absolutely send me a message in there, ask me any question you've got, how I started, the journey that I took, and if you want to know anything at all, you can absolutely ping me a message on there. I'll be more than happy to answer.
Fantastic. And where you train is indeed in London, but I think it's a different suburb or slightly different name. Is that correct?
Yeah. So my gym is Team Underground, and that's in Old Kent Road in London, and that's the gym that I live at. And the other gym is the Wood, and that is in Kent, and that's in Sittingbourne.
Excellent. Well, Thomas Paull, I want to thank you so much for coming on here, man. I'm definitely excited to talk to you. You're an inspiration. You're a tough guy, and it seems like you're an amazing role model. I like your objectives to help the deaf community get into fighting, and that being your number one goal. That is beautiful, man, that you're willing to really do something for a whole community instead of just thinking of yourself. So I give you a lot of respect and credit for that. Any friend of Chris Allen is a friend of mine, so I'll be cheering for you. I can't wait to see you get that win over
Brilliant.
Milad Ahadi. And thank you so much as well. Of course, Sean as well, but of course, mostly Thomas Paull. Thank you so much for joining me here on MMA from London to LA. Big respect for you, my friend. And we'll look forward to talking to you somewhere again down the line.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Take care. Great talking to you. Be well. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great day. Okay, and there we go. All right.